Darren to the Community Wealth Building Commission on 12th of December 2023. I've noted we've got Councillor Allison present and Councillor Brown. We have apologies from Councillor Chalmers. Councillor Cooper, apologies. Councillor Fagan is present and Councillor Robb. Councillor Ross? No. Councillor Walker is present. We have apologies from Cleland Snedden. Paul Manning is present and we have apologies from Suman Sengupta. Apologies from Jan Gardner. Josephine Pravin Kumara is present. Apologies from Hisashi Kubayama and Stephen Sweeney. Thomas Adamson? No, it's not with us. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to come to item 1, which is declarations of interest. Can I ask if there are any declarations anyone wishes to make? I don't see any declarations. So could I come now to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting? Are there any issues arising from the previous meeting? I don't see any issues or questions. So can I ask that we approve those minutes as a correct record? Are we agreed? Agreed. I'm going to come then to item 3, which is the first of our items for consideration. One that I think within about a week of taking over as leader of the council, I met Nancy in Stonehouse and we thought it would be a good idea to have her come and present to a group of councillors. And it's taken a bit of time, but we've finally got not just a group of councillors, but actually a group of representatives of different bodies across the community through the Community Wealth Building Commission who are here and that Nancy can present to on the Larkhall Plan Partnership. But I know there's an enormous amount of work that takes place beneath that and has done for a very long time in Larkhall. Given what we've to get through today, rather than have a protracted or extended introduction, I'm quite sure that Nancy's perfectly capable of talking us all through this for herself. And so I'm going to pass over to Nancy Barr to present on the Larkhall Plan Partnership. Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and it's a privilege to be invited to speak to you today. And we're really keen for community wealth building to be seen as something that we can tap into and that can actually help us to develop what we're doing in the town. But basically, really, I'm the chair of the Community Growers and the Community Network and the Plan Partnership. And I hope today, very briefly, just to show you a wee bit about what community wealth building actually means to us and what our vision is for the community. Larkhall, you might know, has a population of around 16,000, depending on where you look, depending on what the number is, because there's so many new houses recently. It's expected to increase by 25% over the next 5 to 10 years, specifically because of residential consents. We have 2 SIMD areas. We have a thriving town centre and a number of successful businesses. We have a very active third sector, and we have big-hearted people in our community. Larkhall Community Growers was set up to build community from the ground up, and that's a strong, resilient, sustainable, supportive, inspiring community. That's what we hope that we can deliver and are attempting to deliver even today. Slide 2. Messy. In 2008, a small church in Larkhall had a discussion about whether or not volunteers could make a difference to the lives of folks living in their community. And that was the start of a journey. And that journey took me to trying to find out who was doing what in the community already and where the gaps were. And it led me to knock on the door of the council's regeneration team in Larkhall. And that was when I first met Mr. McManus here, who was the manager at the time. And Martin has helped us to navigate the council over the years, because it's very confusing for those of us who are outside of it, and also to help us to put our vision, to share our vision and to put it into place. We took on this site in Hayles Hill in the middle of an SIMD, and we took a 15-year lease with the possible extension of another 10. It was really messy. It was full of sofas, wicked bottles, tyres, fridges, all the things that you would expect in that kind of area. The council went in twice a year and cut the grass. So we have the lease. We're in year 13 now, and it's a 1/4 of a hectare. It's surrounded by 54 houses. And we worked very hard to get community buy-in so that nobody felt as though this was going to encroach on their privacy or whatever. And there was one wee lady right at the gate who wasn't happy about it, and she phoned me every week when the construction was on to complain about something. And I went out and I sorted it out, and then the week before we were due to open it up, she phoned and I said, Mrs. Devine, you know, we're just really trying to do something good. And she sort of went silent for a minute, and then she said, well, I've been thinking about that, and can I have one of your raised beds? And I thought, wow, perseverance and being gracious to her all these months actually paid off. And she was a lovely person. I got to call her Flo when she actually came down to the garden. So perseverance does actually pay off. So that was a win. The funding that we secured at the time enabled us to bring in Clydesdale Community Initiatives in Lanark to actually build the garden, and it's now run by staff and volunteers. And this is a picture of it in the summer. The space is there to build relationships. We do training and a whole load of different things, including horticulture as well as cooking and different things. We share skills. If you know any gardeners, they love to share all their knowledge and their skills. We signpost people to often public sector services. We offer practical help. We encourage volunteering, and sometimes we offer employment opportunities for young folks who are maybe trying to get back into the workplace. We run activities, events. There's gallons of tea and coffee and lots of chat. The schools are involved, the nurseries, local groups, families, individuals, all ages and all abilities. There is no one excluded. We welcome everyone. We're part of a climate action partnership across the 4 localities, which I think the funding team in South Lanarkshire helped us to achieve that from the Levelling Up Fund. And what we've found happens is there are informal peer support networks actually growing from the people who come along to use the facilities. So if one person has got a hospital appointment, somebody will volunteer to take them, or if somebody needs their garden done, someone will come along and do it. So they're doing that off their own back. They'll go for coffee just away from the site. So there are relationships being built and networks being built that weren't there before. And we see this as building community from the ground up. The value to individuals in the community is improved health and well-being, being informed about what's going on in the community and having a voice in order to input to that development, and dealing with potentially issues before they actually become a monster. There's a lot of chat goes on where we can signpost people or talk people through things before it becomes something that they need to engage with other services in order to help solve. We've taken the land back into productive use. We buy locally, and we use local suppliers, mainly, completely, totally. And we have a strong relationship. We're trusted, and we're embedded in the life of the community. We have the support of our MP, our MSPs, our local councillors, and our community. We're very fortunate. We have 4 staff and 20+ volunteers. We are active members of the Plan Partnership, the Community Network, and also VASLAN. And we engage with a wide range of initiatives that affect our community. If Larkhall can benefit from something, then we want to be involved. Over the last 10 years, we've worked hard to secure over £700,000 of funding. And for every one that we got, we probably didn't get 2. So there's a lot of work goes on that really doesn't lead to anything. And a big percentage of that has been spent locally. Our employees live locally, and we pay, always have done, paid above the real living wage. In 2019, there was a feeling that there was a lack of investment in our community, so we called together the local organisations, the third sector organisations around the table, and the feeling was that we could do something about this. Why don't we have a community survey, ask folks what they think about the community and what the solutions might be in order to make it different. We got the support of our local and national politicians, the South Lanarkshire Chief Exec and CPP partners. And over 1,800 people responded to the survey at the time. We published the results, and we identified key priorities that were taken forward. There was a lull due to COVID, and then the first meeting after COVID, every single person came back. Nobody gave up. They all felt that this was still something that they wanted to be part of. We have a social media reach of around 8,000 people, 700 of whom we regularly update. They wanted to be involved in the updates. Partners refer people to us for advice and for information. And we've become enablers. The Place-Based Investment Fund, South Lanarkshire decreed that only 1 application could be per community. So we had 2 projects So Larkhall Community Growers became the applicant for West of Scotland Housing and the YMCA so that that application could go ahead. The picture in the back of Councillor Anderson there is a lighthouse which is owned by the council, and one of our partners has it in a long lease. So they use that as a community hub. It was originally the credit union and the public toilets, I think. We're also interested in the Q&A in the Main Street in Larkhall as a potential community asset transfer. The library sits in there, and our community centre is closed, and the Q&A is sitting there. I'm not sure how much it's used upstairs. It's got and we're going to explore the possibility of maybe getting involved with that. This is part of what happens on the ground, actions from the survey. Our town centre is very busy, but people had said that it was drab and dull and it needed brightened up. So we got some funding and we put planters out in the main street, and these are partner volunteers who are actually planting them up. We got some nice banners that show the history and the heritage of our community, except I didn't get one of them in that picture. And the Digital Information Board is an amazing attraction that people said that they don't know what's going on in the community. So we set up this with help of the Roads Department, who helped us get it in that location, to show people what's going on, to tell the story of the events, the activities and the good things that are happening in the community. From this, as I say, we had 4 priorities that were taken forward under Larkhall Plan Partnership, and one of them relates to the town centre. And we have a linear town centre, so there's no square. And people said there's nowhere to sit. We don't have any social space. So there's a road called King Street that's diagonal to the main street. And we got money to do a feasibility study and a business plan to try and pedestrianise that and use it as a social space for markets, for entertainment, for places for people just to come and chat. So I'm now looking for funding to get an architect to come and do a design for us, and that's the next stage of that process. On the corner of that street, King Street, sits Trinity Church, which has now been declared surplus to the Church of Scotland's requirement just recently. And we've been involved in a potential funding application and a community engagement exercise to see whether or not people would support that coming into the ownership of the community. Since the community centre closed, the church hall is really, really busy. There's 250 kids a week come through their doors. The food bank sits in that location as well. So the church elders think that this could be a potential art and culture centre. So we've put the community engagement exercise out. We've got 600 responses. We've got a week still to go, and we're applying to the Scottish Land Fund for funding for a feasibility study and a business plan. So that's town centre. The leisure centre, as you know, we're really keen in Larkhall to have our new leisure centre. We feel it's crucial to the health and wellbeing of our community. And we engaged with South Lanarkshire in the survey, and there was 1,200 responses to that, which was great. There was a public meeting that the leaders, the political leaders were invited to, and there was over 140 people turned up. And we had a petition that was signed by over 1,800 folks. So folks are interested, and that's a good thing. The next one is the Health Improvement Plan. We had the chairs of NHS Lanarkshire and the Health and Social Care Partnership who came out to see us. We showed them around the town and told them about what the kind of things we want to do, and they were very supportive of that. We have 2 representatives on the Health and Social Care Forum, so we're progressing through that vehicle. And the 4th one is an open space strategy. Larkhall is surrounded by green space, and there's lots of green space within the community. And we have a big long list that people gave us in the survey of all the things they want to see in that space. So we've been speaking to the council officers about doing an open space strategy together, and we've had a couple of meetings on that. And I've got a meeting on Friday looking at what sites we can use that the council own going forward. A couple of other things that were in the survey was school catchment areas needed to be reviewed, and in fact South Lanarkshire just in recent months have actually progressed that, and also the improvements to the M74 slip road, which I think the work starts there in January. So it's a partnership approach to delivering what people asked for in our survey. This is the community network. The COVID response was very quick in Larkhall because the Larkhall Plan Partnership already knew one another. So the work that was done in the town received a national award from the Scottish Urban Regeneration Forum, which was very much appreciated. A review of the partnership is currently underway, looking at how we can best serve our community going forward, and Community Enterprise and Communities Connected is helping us with that. Larkhall Community Network is about partnership, it's about collaboration, it's about sharing information, knowledge and resources. It's working towards the same objectives, having a shared vision, each with our own part to play and our own way of doing things in that mix. South Lanarkshire Council and NHS are part of that network, and their input is really helpful to us to help us to develop solutions that work best for the community, and also to highlight emerging challenges that they see that we wouldn't know if they weren't there, so it's very, very useful. We have the support of local businesses. Even as we come up to Christmas, there's lots of local businesses supporting our Christmas gifts approach. And we're doing, at the moment, partnership projects that include befriending, because there's lots of people in Larkhall who are still not coming out into the community. They just want to, COVID has meant that they just don't want to come back out, they don't want to engage. They come to the shops and then they go home. So the befriending project is to try and encourage them to come back out into the community. And also the Back to School initiative, which was about school uniforms, where all the partners are involved in that. We share social media posts, that gives us a wider reach. And during COVID, Larkhall District Volunteer Group and Larkhall Community Growers became anchor organisations for funders, who gave the funders to the organisation, and we then dispensed it to the partners who were delivering the project on behalf of the network. During COVID, we received £100,000 from the Scottish Government, and if we include donations, volunteer time and other contributions, the value to the community was 300,000. We did that exercise and we found that it was a 1-to-3 ratio. So I think that's an amazing thing to happen in any community. The £100,000 was a lever to allow the community then to invest on that, which was great. Larkhall District and Volunteer Group have a series of lunch clubs, that five a week I think they run. And before COVID they did a cost-benefit analysis, and they discovered that in the delivery of the 5 lunch clubs cost £79,700 per year. Without LDV's intervention, it was discovered that if you were to take the food, the carers who then have to go and make the food and give it to the clients, GP visits, hospital stays and lost family work days, the cost of that would have been £248,900. So there's a saving of £169,250, and this exercise was done by Community Enterprise. They also operate a call line. They call 100 vulnerable people every weekday. And the time, that reduces the carers going into somebody's house. It reduces the GP visits and potential hospital stays, and the savings from that was estimated to be £160,000. That's one organisation and 2 services. That's the reality of what's happening on the ground. Okay, community wealth building, what does it mean to us? We see that community wealth building reflects really things that we're already doing in our community, and I felt that these Singapore super trees really actually helped show the concept of the pillars, because they're not separate, they're connected, they're all interconnected, and all the things that happen in community are interconnected, they can't stand alone. So connection is crucial, I think, to the success of these things on the ground. And they require strong roots, essential for growth, because the roots need to be strong in order for the harvest to happen. And the management has to be focused, and we have to be determined, and I have to say, I really hope and pray that this doesn't become a tick box exercise, that we can actually tap into this, we can become part of this, we can actually see how this can allow our community to grow and to prosper under these 5 pillars. Investment is not just money, it's about people, it's about time, it's about relationships and trust, etc., etc. There's so many things that is investment, and it's not only money. Sometimes money's not the right thing. Joined up thinking is crucial, and seamless communications, which Tom obviously knows all about and does, and meaningful partnerships. I'm asked a lot of the time if I want to be a partner with somebody who's doing this, that, the other, and when you go into the detail of it, they've already decided what they're doing. So they don't want a partnership, they want support, they want us to say, yes, we agree with what you're doing, but we want meaningful partnerships, so we're involved in the discussions from the beginning as a community. One small community across the whole of South Lanarkshire. We're committed to improving the quality of life for people in our community, and we can see how community wealth building could actually help to do this. We bring knowledge of our community, we bring connections, strong relationships and successful partnerships. We have good communications, information sharing and transparency that builds trust. Now don't laugh at this, but I believe that for the future, we're going to continue to deliver our planned priorities. We're going to do another survey in 2025-26. We're going to continue to focus on prevention, early intervention, support and connections. We're going to engage with strategies that will impact our community, and we'll continue to build community from the ground up. We have the ambition to be a pilot for participatory budgeting. We've got a whole list of things that people want, and we feel that we could actually develop projects that would be a solution to these challenges, and then we could put these out to the community and they could decide which was their priority. We also are putting together a business proposal that we intend to give to planning, looking at the increase in value to communities from community benefit clauses. We've got 1,700 new houses being built on Larkhall, and third sector. That then means that there would be a 25% increase in the demand for our services. But at the moment, the Community Benefit Fund doesn't allow that. There's no money for that. So we need to go and find money to bring in new staff, to have new resources, to keep our lights on longer and our heating on longer in order to enable us to manage and to take on these new people who are coming to live in our community. So there's a holistic approach from that. I think that when we grant a planning consent, we don't think, what does that mean actually on the ground? And sometimes I think we need to take a wee step back from that. Now this picture here, my friends brought this back from their holidays one year, and it's up in my kitchen. And I wasn't sure whether it was a compliment or an insult. But when I saw it the other day on my wall, I thought, this is exactly what I want to say to you amazing people around the table here, or the tables. Can South Lanarkshire think differently about the community wealth benefit framework, wealth building framework, if I get it right? Not follow the crowd, and not take all the things that we're already doing and just sit them under the pillars, because the pillars are all separate and all the things that we do are connected. I think we have to think differently. Not just do what everybody else is doing, but do it our way, do it the South Lanarkshire way. We would hope that this framework would enable us to move forward together, that it will encourage creativity, that it would encourage thinking outside the box. And I know the next few years are going to be hard. I've seen the budget stuff coming across my desk, and it's really challenging. But I don't believe the challenges should be allowed to obscure the opportunities. When I worked in the Lanark office, my boss at the time used to say, Nancy, for every challenge there are opportunities, you've just got to find them. And I've believed that all the way along, and that's what we do. We hope for a shared vision for community wealth building. We hope that that can happen. And we hope that there's a plan that enables and empowers communities to be strong, healthy and prosperous. That's the challenge. And the only thing that's left for me to do is to invite you to come along to Larkhall, and we'll show you around, and we'll tell you what our vision is, and show you what's been happening, and let you speak to the people who are actually doing all the hard work on the ground. Thank you for listening to me. I'm sorry if I went on.
No, that's been superb, Nancy. I'm going to just ask now if anyone wants to put any questions on the back of that presentation. If you could indicate either online, if you could indicate, or if you just want to indicate here in the room. I've got a couple myself, but I think that I'm going to come to Kirsten Robb in the first instance. Kirsten.
Thank you, and lovely to see you again, Nancy. I didn't recognise you with your glamorous hair as well. Always glamorous. So yeah, it was a really interesting presentation. We know the value of volunteering is priceless, but you have put a price on it, and it shows the effectiveness of how much value that is to people, whether it's things, just relationships, friendships, but also saving to public services as well, and things that public services can't do as well, all those other community work. So I just wanted to ask a bit more about the community benefit side of things, which is something I've raised before as well. I'm really keen that the community benefits framework achieves much more value-based outcomes rather than maybe nice, immediate, but sometimes a bit tokenistic. How does it contribute towards local plans, local community plans that have been delivered, where local communities are saying, we want this big vision for our community or this big project. How can community benefits contracts tap into those to make sure we get a bigger bang for that buck from contracts as well? So more power to your elbow, and that's for wider discussion about how we can reform the community benefit framework to make sure it's contributing to wider outcomes that have been identified by communities.
One of the key things for me is that we would be involved in discussions earlier on. I think people who are working in the town, officers in the council, know what's needed. They know what's going on, but it would be good sometimes just to speak to I feel specifically for the third sector, because they're having to soak this up, and they haven't had a say in it. They haven't. The only consultation is the normal planning consultation, but there are so many things that we could have done if put in place if there had been an opportunity to do that. So I know it's too late now for Larkhall, because all the things are signed at the planning stage. But going forward, for other communities, I think it would be good to speak to the anchor organisations or the locality networks that Vaslin have been setting up to look at what are the needs and what impact are these new houses going to have on the whole community, you know. And I know we need the infrastructure, we need the school places, we need the nurseries, we need the roads and all of that, absolutely, most definitely. But I think we have to look beyond that. There are layers below that I think could benefit the people who are coming to live in the town.
Josephine.
Thank you. A great presentation and great work, Nancy. Thank you. I was interested in your point about, you mentioned 2 areas in the SIMD1 areas within Larkhall, and I know maybe you might not have specific data around it, but just wondered whether how much of engagement from those communities in terms of that difference. Was there anything specific around, you know, for that particular group of people, or anything targeted you have done? If you could share anything specific around that. Thank you.
Yes, I think one of the SIMDs, Strotherhill, is actually has an OPOP, so that the council actually invest money in that. And Hayleshill one, it's not under the OPOP umbrella, but a local, the old Gospel Hall at the time, a couple of years ago, was sold to a local businessman, and he offered it up to the community for community use. So we've taken that on, and we're delivering services from the middle of Hayleshill now, which has really got nothing. The Hayleshill school, the room that was in there for community has been taken over by the school because they've got such a huge ASN group. So we've been working with these folks, and their challenges sometimes are very different, but sometimes a lot of the time they're the same. One of the things that struck me with what they were talking about was how when we put the planters out in the town, the number of people who said these are amazing, and it brightens people's mood. And I thought, how good would it be to take some of these green spaces in the middle of our residential areas, specifically the SIMD areas, and encourage people to come out and plant, put flowers in them, encourage the kids to come out and do things. So they're building community from the ground up. So that's something that's in our plan. Some of the people were talking about specifically housing things, where they have a nice wee street where everybody's getting on and they've been there for a few years, and then the council puts someone in who causes trouble. So there's something that came across quite a lot. So we've never got to the point of actually looking at the council's policy, but I have spoken to our councillors about that to see whether or not that's something that could be addressed. But I'm told that a lot of the time these houses are actually private and they're not owned by the council. So there's a big mix in there. It's not just simply the council can fix it, because they can't always. So does that answer your question?
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Some relating to the presentation and just some relating to my own experience just in Larkhall. So, and the first thing, I suppose, which we never really kind of delved into, but Larkhall, as you touched on, does have a thriving town centre. I think when I compare it to just about every other town centre in South Lanarkshire, or indeed in Scotland, we've got the same issues, yet Larkhall seems to be dealing with them relatively relatively well. Now, that might not, there could be any number of reasons for that, but it seems to me that a big part of the success of what you do is throughout all of it, people have a real sense of place and a real sense of where what they do on the ground fits into a wider sense of place. And also, where some of these big, the wider issues like the leisure centre, people are following it. People know that that's something that's on the agenda. So I'm just curious as to what you think it is that makes Larkhall Town Centre work, because I think we then maybe need to think about what are the lessons when it comes to anchor institutions, locations, relationship with business, etc. I've got a second question, which is really about the plan, and I think we've spoken about this before, the expectations that you will get from the plan versus the reality of what you can deliver, particularly when budgets are tight, and particularly when, I think you said maybe for every application for funding you make, there's maybe 2 that aren't successful. So when there's got to be a piece of work around managing expectations, I suppose, but also understanding that the expectations that the community has are valid. It's just have to be measured against what's achievable. So I'm curious as to how you do that. And then I maybe have a third question, which was just on the back of the just your exchange there with Kirsten. I suppose there's community benefits and developer contributions, maybe just setting aside. I'm just wondering if you get any feedback on community wish lists, and so it's something that we've introduced relatively recently, still a very new concept, so it might be too recent to have a much of an informed view on that. I'm just wondering if you've got any sort of feedback you'd want to give us on the community wish lists as an approach to maybe trying to marry up some of what the community asks are with where we have community benefit funding available. So I've got 3 questions, and if you want me to repeat any of them, just let me know.
I think I know that some of the organisations have actually put something into community wish lists. I haven't heard of any of them. Have you got something back yet? And I was actually thinking about putting in an architect to do King Street. I thought, well, let's throw it out there and see if anybody picks it up. And while I look for funding to bring one in, so I thought we'd do the 2 of them. Your first question about the town centre, Larkhall, as I say, the size of the town. I think we're very fortunate in that because we still consider ourselves to be a village. You walk up the main street, people say hello and ask you how you're doing or whatever, and it's that's who we are. People, the garden is up in the middle of the scheme, and when people come into Larkhall and have never been there before, and they stop folks to ask them where they are, invariably the person will take them there. So, and they will comment on, people are really friendly in this part. So I think because we've still got that, and I hope we manage to retain that village outlook, if you like. So I think there's that, and I think the people in the town value the town centre. And a lot of the shops that are there are not nationals. They're all local shops in the main. So it's something different. It's not what you would get if you go into Glasgow or whatever. And I think as well as that, you can park on the main street for an hour. So you can go in, get your 5 things, and then leave and disappear. So there's a lot of reasons, I think, why it's success. Now, I'm told, though, one of there was an empty unit and somebody went after it, and I was told that it's something like they were looking for £3,000 a month. So, obviously, the companies that are going in there reckon that they can actually make that, because that's quite a high rent, I think, for a single unit. But they obviously, the shops that are going to go in there actually are pretty sure that they're going to make that, otherwise they wouldn't engage with it. So I think there's lots of, but I do think the local people support them. What was your middle question? It
was really just about that point of the expectations of the community versus what you're able to deliver and what you have the capacity to deliver.
Yes, I'm very aware of that. And I mean, sometimes when we've been going out recently, I remember filling in that survey, and then of course we had COVID and whatever. So we do try to keep people engaged. But I think, we set these expectations, and what we're delivering, some of these projects are longer scale projects. So it's really, really difficult. And I applied to the Investing in Communities Fund to the Scottish Government to actually help me bring in 2 employees to help take this forward. and we weren't successful with that. So we're relying on volunteers and other folks when we can get them, as well as the folks who have taken up each of the priorities have actually been picked up by one of the Larkhall Plan Partnership groups. So they're running with them. So they're doing that as well as their day job with their organisation. So absolutely, I would love to be able to do this much quicker. But we just have to go at the pace that we can manage, unfortunately. I would love it to happen next week.
I think if there's no other questions, the point I would make is I still think Larkhall is just an example of success. So even though you're always frustrated and you want to be able to do more, I think actually the work that's done in the community level in Larkhall is amazing. It's actually an example to other places in the South Lanarkshire. So that would be my feedback. Are there any other questions? Or I'm not seeing any. Well, thank you very much then, Nancy, for coming and presenting to us. We've got a copy of your presentation. I'll maybe just ask that it gets circulated just round everyone on the commission, so that make sure we've all got sight of that as well as the kind of covering paper. And there's a copy of the community plan as well. I've already got one sitting in the office. But listen, thank you very much again, and thank you for attending. And if there's no other questions, I'll move on to the next item, and just feel free to head off when you're ready. Okay. Well, thank you, folks. Can I now come to item 4, which is it's the Q2 update on the Community Wealth Building Action Plan. I'm going to ask Neil Reid to speak to this report. Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is the Q2 performance report on the Community Wealth Building Action Plan. So we refresh the action plan each year. So the last refresh was brought to the Commission in September and was approved then. So this covers the period April 2023 to September 2023. There are 72 actions within that action plan which are being progressed. So they have a footprint, if you like, in this financial year. As usual, the format is the same as many of our performance reports that come out of Improve. The traffic light status that we use is shown there at 4.3 with some definitions as to how to interpret them, and there is a full appendix which contains a note against each of those 72 actions. So the table that you see at 4.4 shows the total number, blue, green, amber and red at the end of Q2. Many of the updates are quite concise. It's really just a snapshot of what is happening, but Commission members will be aware that we are bringing to the Commission more detailed reports which go into several of these areas of work in a great deal more detail, and that some of those will form items in future agendas. But the idea of the progress report is to give a quick snapshot of how those actions are progressing, and the recommendation is to note the contents of the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Neil. Can I ask if there are any questions on that report? I'm not seeing... Oh, sorry. Kirsten.
Thanks again. Thank you. And thanks for the report as well. It was just a wee question following up on the workforce side of things on page 24. Sorry, I've just got locked out of my laptop at this very moment. I didn't change the password. So it's on page 24. It talks about developing the skills in a transition to a net zero as well. And that links a bit with the motion which the Council approved last year to kickstart the green economy. And just last week's report by Skills Development Scotland, which said there was £90 billion of green investment coming, so we need more net zero skills there. So just the question is, how is this work being targeted, and who's taking it forward in the Council or in the partnership, so that South Lanarkshire can benefit from this investment, maybe as a focus for a future report or something under the workforce pillar?
Okay, I'm looking to see if anyone wants to pick that one up. Tom? Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Rob. We've got a limited number of officers around the table, and that's quite a specific question, so if it's okay, I'd quite like to get back to you on that. But on your point about perhaps a report coming forward, Neil and I have been looking at ways to bring more specific reports under the pillars, and that's certainly one we can now add to that list as a priority.
I'd be quite happy with that myself. Are there any other questions? No. Josephine, yeah.
Very helpful update. Just the list of one action is around the list of engaging with other anchors. So I just wondered whether there is a separate report around that, or what progress is made around that. Other anchor organizations, I'm trying to pick up the exact action number. Right at the beginning, I think it talked about linking with a number of anchor organizations, and a list was being pulled together. The activity was marked for the latter half of the period, so I just wondered whether you have something around that.
Okay, Craig?
No, thank you for the question. Assuming that's in relation to the update on the spend pillar, then yes, as you've noted there, the activity there will take place in the second half of the financial year, and there's discussions planned with colleagues in economic development around that, in particular in relation to the colleges and also in relation to NHS Lanarkshire too.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
I would maybe flag up at this point that we have considered charters. I realise, I think your question was about an update, to be honest, but I would just keep that on the agenda. We did have a piece of work of looking at charters, and charters that apply not just to the council or any one of the organisations, but actually trying to get a kind of common approach across multiple organisations to amplify the work that we do. Margaret?
Sorry, thanks, Chair. It's just a question on page 17, the Building the Generative Economy. Building a new strategic agreement with the third sector. Is there any more information on that and what that would involve? Is work will commence in January 2024?
What page was that on, sorry?
It's 17 according to the action plan, page 17.
My page 17 is a covering page, so just it might be another number. Does somebody spotted it?
Comes under Building the Generative Economy in the action plan.
Okay, Tom? Oh, sorry, Jen.
Hi, thanks. Hi, I'm Jen Kerr. I'm the Community Engagement Manager. That's an area of work that we'll be starting in the new year with working alongside VASLAN and their Chief Officers Group to look at the compact and the relationship between some of the locality groups that forums they have that Nancy mentioned. And it kind of links to the paper I've got on the agenda today as well, just to see where we work alongside as partners rather than as stakeholders in our work, work of other anchors. We look at the community anchors that are out there and the third sector anchors as well and start to bring them more together. So that is something where we have the intention to start to develop in January and work out how we'll take that forward. So do expect probably a report back just 3 to 6 months from now on that.
Margaret, could I ask you to press your button so we can turn your mic?
Sorry. Yeah, in terms of the last item as well, it would be really interesting if we kind of drew out how the third sector kind of fitted in with local community networks like the one that we were actually discussing in the previous item. So it would be really good, to get a kind of review and an overview of that and where it all fits in. No, it's just I thought it would be useful to have a wee bit more information exactly what that was and what it was going to be involve, because obviously third sector are fairly pivotal in terms of community wealth building. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take one more on this point, and it comes from Kirsten Robb. Kirsten.
Thank you. It builds a bit on the previous point I made about the net zero skills, but it links to generative economy and land and buildings as well. I noted from the Performance and Review Committee last week that the Council is quite rightly looking at plans to generate income, and part of that is on renewables on public land. Just wondering if that could be added to the report on a future report on land and buildings pillar, to see if we could find out a bit more about or get an update about what's happening for the Council to generate renewables on its land and buildings. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can. Yes. Okay, if there are no other questions then can I think it's probably a good segue into the next item then. So Jen is joining us from home. Could I come to item 5 then? That is, well, I think, just let me just check for formalities. Do I need to make sure that we've agreed to any recommendations in there? I think that report's simply to be noted, so as we simply note that previous report. So if we move to item 5, that's the Community Wealth Building and Neighbourhood Planning item, and I'm going to come to Jen Kerr to speak to that item. Jen.
Great, thanks. Hi everyone, I'm Jen Kerr. I'm the Community Planning Manager at South Lanarkshire Council, but I also coordinate alongside other partners the Community Planning Partnership. So this paper is about noting the idea, but also agreeing that we could establish a working group to do exactly what some of your questions and what Nancy was talking about earlier, which is just to start to bring together community wealth building from a community perspective that can help us as a commission and can help this commission to kind of understand the breadth of stuff that we're doing across the range of partners that are involved. And what we don't have is a sort of localized data set. We have a lot of data that we use, and that's across all partners in the Community Planning Partnership. We have a lot of data, and we're just starting to look at place and organizing ourselves around place. And what we're finding is that just actually understanding what we're investing, what we're transferring, how many volunteers are participating, and what all that's worth to a local community is actually a bit of a challenge for us. So this paper proposes that we look at the 4 localities that the Community Planning Partnership is already working in. These are Cambuslang and Rutherglen, East Kilbride, Hamilton, and the Clydesdale area. Within those localities, we have 9 Our Place, Our Plans, which Nancy mentioned one of them at Strotherhill earlier, as OPOP plans. So these are where we work in areas of known deprivation, stubborn inequality, SIMD 20% or less. We've been doing that now for several years, and we have quite a bit of information around those, but not from a community wealth building lens. So this paper proposes a range of reasons why this would be useful for us to really kind of understand local economies, and also to see where we're investing in those economies. We do provide a range of investments. We've got our wish list. We've got our procurement chains. We're investing grants. We're investing participatory budgeting, where communities are doing more for themselves. We've got a lot of local businesses getting involved in quite a few of those programs as well. So at a real localized level in neighborhood planning areas, we're starting to see community wealth building take shape. We're starting to see social entrepreneurs joining through the third sector groups and through Yvonne's work, which you heard about at the last meeting. So we felt if we started to bring some of this together at least a locality level, and if we can delve even closer down across our range of partners who collect information about place and about the well-being of that place, that would actually help this and assist this commission just kind of see the realization in situ of community wealth building efforts across each of the pillars. We would propose that we would organize those around the pillars. We may have to create some new ones if we come up with more, but basically to create a data set. We also recognize that all partners are currently under enormous pressures, and that this would require some additional work for partners. So we would propose to consider this idea, and that we would put together a working group and spend this year working on developing that. And when we start to get some of that data in situ, we'd be able to provide a report sometime across into the new year. So any questions or comments on that?
Okay, thanks very much, Jen. I think for me, one of the issues that I keep returning to is being able to, conceptually, I think people understand community wealth building, but actually it is important to me that we're able to track and have some kind of evidence base to build from on the ground. So in that sense, I'm very much welcome the report. Are there any questions for Jen on the back of that? Josephine?
No, it's very helpful, and I agree completely in terms of having those indicators. I suppose, and maybe this will be available at a stage when we are starting to report the sort of links between some of these. For example, we heard in Lark Hall about the projects that are in place and how do we map them to the sort of particular indicators, because rather than separate reporting them on separately, looking at some of the linkages and how can we map in terms of the difference that are made over the years and the trends. So, for example, also one point indicator here is on social return on investment or reduced antisocial behavior. So if you think about what we heard earlier on, again, can we make those connections in terms of the demonstrating that change? So that, I suppose, rather than just reporting on individual, can we make those, can we build on that evidence to make those, that changes have been made? So it's really helpful.
Okay, no, thanks, Josephine. Jen, do you want, I'm conscious it was more of an observation, but I'll ask Jen if you want to pick up anything on that, and then I'll come to Margaret Walker. Jen.
Yeah, just to say that's what we hope would start to become evident as we collect more and more people start to see it. They want to contribute more to it as well, and we can start to see stuff really localized. And we would want to build on that. So I'm hoping that if the more we put in place there, and from the range of different perspectives, so we'll talk about transferring an asset and what that might save the partner that it came from, the anchor body that it came from, but actually how a community values that building is probably quite different from us and what they're doing with it. So we want to even work with community organizations like Nancy's and their partnerships to start to put in what they value and what they see is relevant to this. And I think that's where we'll start to see the connections, probably in different language, but we'll start to see them.
Okay, thank you very much. Margaret?
Thank you. No, I would just sort of echo the comments of Josephine. I think it would be really useful to have this information in the context of community wealth building, and also across those 4 localities that are relatively far advanced in some area in terms of neighbourhood plans and developing social enterprise work as well. So it would be useful in terms of looking at the impact across, for example, child poverty rates and compare it and benchmark it in relation to those 4 areas that have encompassed a community wealth building approach, and to see how it compares maybe with other areas who are not as far down that route. So that would be really interesting. And also what Nancy was saying, if we had indicators in terms of numbers of grants and access to funding that could highlight the number of hours, maybe sometimes that people are spending and they aren't accessing the funding, and we could demonstrate that, and that would maybe help in terms of trying to access and make a case, for more funding. So no, it's just to echo the comments. I think it would be really useful, and it's not too long. It's not too long in that it becomes difficult to read. I think it's quite concise in terms of the indicators it's identified. Thanks.
And not to be onerous either on the people that we're working with, but yeah. Jen, do you want to pick up anything there, and then I'll bring this item to a close? Jen? No? Oh, yeah, got you.
Sorry, I pushed the wrong button. Just to make a comment on the child poverty indicator, since we started thinking about this, I've started to see it everywhere I go. And I was at a meeting the other day where Skills Development Scotland were presenting their destination breakdowns for South Lanarkshire. And if you look at where our child poverty rates are the highest, that's where our leaver destinations are the lowest across the area. So you can actually start to see, when you look really locally, how inequality and deprivation is affecting some of the things that we think should be better in our local communities. So yes, that's child poverty in particular, then poverty, and where we should be investing is for me what I think would be beneficial from this. So looking forward to that.
Okay, thank you very much. There have been no other questions. Can I ask that we agree those recommendations? Are we agreed? Yes, we're agreed. Can I come now to item 6? Which is one of the data digest reports on the context for community wealth building, and Neil is going to talk us through this one again. Neil.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so this is another report about statistics. So when we first started with the Commission way back in 2021, one of the things we did to kick things off was to put together a sort of context document, simply saying here's some socio-economic indicators which lay out what the situation is like in South Lanarkshire, and essentially the context within which we are embarking on our community wealth building journey. And it was agreed that bringing statistics like that at regular intervals is useful to let us see how things are changing and potentially to see the impacts that we're having. So that the digest of statistics was updated in 2022, and again it has been updated for 2023. It's a wee bit later than we would have liked, but the agenda for the last meeting of the Commission was quite full, so we brought it to this one instead. So it's the same format as before. At 3.4, you'll see the bullet points, the sort of contents that are in this data digest. And we're also building up a bit of a profile over time. So some of the tables actually have those 3 updates that we provided sequentially. So you're getting a bit of trend information. Anyway, it's essentially there as a bit of context for our work, and I think it does interleave with the sorts of metrics that Jen's been talking about, in the sense that we start to build up a bigger picture of what we are achieving in South Lanarkshire, and this is part of understanding the situation that we work within. So the recommendation is to note the content of the report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask if there are any questions in that report? Alec?
Simple one, Chair. Why is the comparison to North Lanarkshire? Because where I am, I don't see any link to these figures.
Okay. Neil? Tom?
It's a bit of a hangover from the first time we put this data together, when it was for a pan-Lanarkshire exercise that was being undertaken at the time. But we've kept it in there just to offer some context for people in the Commission to see what's happening in our sister authority.
Following on from that, Tom, I don't see any, what's the word you used? I'm going to use the word link, between the likes of Clydesdale and North Lanarkshire. They're completely different types of background, a rural one against a very urban. And if we're actually looking for it to be contextual, I think we need to be a wee bit more circumspect in what we're comparing to where, because apples and pears aren't comparable.
Tom?
It's a fair point, but I would just, I mean, if you think back to the last paper we discussed as well, this is one set of data and what should be a good stable of data that gives us different information about different places and different times. The kind of information we're hoping to get from the exercise that Jen just relayed will give us that locality comparison, and particularly in where we're having neighbourhood planning places in place. This is a much broader exercise. It's the data digest. It gives you a much broader information in terms of population and demographics. As I say, the link to North Lanarkshire is a bit of a hangover from the first purpose of it, but rather than take it away, we've left it in.
Would make the obvious, but we do share a health board with North Lanarkshire, and on that note, I see that Josephine is also looking to come in. So, Josephine.
Thank you. I think I do appreciate from a pan-Lanarkshire perspective when we're talking about linking with other anchor organisations and working together in partnership in terms of the review of that data is helpful. But I was going to come on the Scottish Welfare Fund data, the table which has been presented there. I mean, I suppose with the cost of living crisis, the increase in number of crisis grants or care grants, the number of requests have gone up significantly, but in terms of the approved applications, so I'm just wondering, what are there other supports, when these applications don't go through, what are available for access. And the general one, again, around the indicators, but I wanted to flag was, I suppose, whilst we're looking at quantitative data, like, you know, there was mention around surveys in terms of getting the community's input, that qualitative data as well, to be able to get that triangulated approach and understanding more our community. So this is two points really I wanted to raise. Thank you.
Okay. Craig?
Yeah, thank you for the questions there. In relation to the Scottish Welfare Fund, there is criteria that councils have to follow set by the Scottish Government. So obviously we follow that criteria, and essentially the award rates reflect the kind of the level of compliance, if you like, with that assessed criteria. I would say more broadly though, over the past 18 months or so, we've had the additional benefit of having the Financial Wellbeing Support Fund within South Lanarkshire. And this is basically supported families, allowing additional cash payments to be made. And that's been facilitated by the Council's Money Matters service. And that obviously provides a real enhancement to what that service can operate beyond the usual offerings around maximising benefit uptake, and obviously in terms of also bringing assistance in managing debt levels, for example. So much more kind of wraparound support we've seen from the Money Matters service over the past 18 months, both on the advisory side, but also importantly giving families in South Lanarkshire some cash support where it's needed.
Okay. If there are no other questions, can we agree to note that report? Agreed. And can I move now to item 7, which is on food procurement? And I think Elaine is going to speak to this one, and she is joining us online. Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Hélène Gourichon, Food Policy Officer for Food Development at South Lanarkshire Council. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the Council's market capacity assessment on food procurement. And this assessment was undertaken by the Council, and the report will also provide an update on the next steps as described in the action plan. So in paragraph 3, you have a presentation of the background behind this assessment. Then paragraph 4, you have the objective of the analysis, and an overview of the activities undertaken for the analysis is available in paragraph 5. Then paragraph 6, there is a summary of the findings, so I'll go through it quickly. So you have an overview of the different council buyers in paragraph 6.1, and then an overview of the food purchased by the council in paragraph 6.2. So it includes a table showing the different contracts, the value, and there is information as well on the share of food products which is currently coming from Scotland, and some information about current sub-suppliers which are actually based in Lanarkshire. In paragraph 6.3, it provides an overview of the food and drink market in Lanarkshire. So it indicates that only 22 local food and drink businesses engage with the consultant, which is a low number compared to the number of food and drink businesses in the area. And it also shows that there is a thriving artisan food scene, and that actual production essentially focuses on livestock, while with little crops being produced in the area. In paragraph 6.4, it shows practices in relation to procurement implemented in 2 other councils. They were selected because they are perceived as well advanced in terms of local food procurement, but the requirements in terms of volume are much lower compared to the council. So the key learning from these 2 examples is that they split the lots for local producers to be able to supply only one area or only one product. And the key findings are available in paragraph 6.5. So let me present the main ones. So as mentioned earlier, the engagement with suppliers has been challenging, with a low level of responses, either due to difficult context for businesses under pressure with limited time to engage with third parties, and or due to low interest from businesses. The main challenges that businesses and the council would face are that several local products don't match the demand of all council buyers, and it's particularly true for facilities given the very specific requirements they have. None of the business identified can fulfill the scale of the current requirement for schools, but some businesses could supply one element of the requirement. And then accreditation held by businesses are very variable depending on businesses and might not match the council requirements. Another key finding is that there is a certain level of food currently sourced from businesses based in Lanarkshire, and in particular milk and meat. And current suppliers of the Council follow a strategy to expand local procurement by trying to increase the number of local food sub-suppliers. In paragraph 6.6, you have a presentation of key challenges and opportunities. So if suitable local products or businesses were identified, the strategy of splitting lots during the tendering process could potentially be adopted, but this approach is likely to imply more resources from procurement services, facilities services, and environmental services. To meet the Council demand in terms of volume, opportunities of collaboration among businesses could also be explored. To overcome the issue of accreditation, business support provided by the Council and partners could be targeted to specific businesses. Challenges perceived among suppliers also include the lack of capacity of businesses to engage with the public sector. However, there is support available through the supplier development program to do that. In the short term, it's interesting to note that there are more opportunities to make progress at SLLC venues, and this is due to the type of product and volume used in this venue. So it's social leisure and culture, sorry. And as illustrated in the table in paragraph 6.2, subcontract opportunities are significant, with the possibility for local small-scale providers to supply food directly to the larger suppliers such as Brakes, Muller or Campbell Meat. In paragraph 7, then you have an evaluation of the market capacity assessment exercise, and paragraph 8 describes the next steps with a list of action to be undertaken by Economic Development, Facility and SLLC. So I'll go through this action plan. So 2 of the action aim to continue the engagement with these 22 businesses identified, so including for SLLC, who wish to use a quick quote process to increase supply of local food in Châtellerault. One of the actions is about identifying other good practices in other local authority which are comparable to the Council in terms of volume. And there are 3 actions around business support, so including funding for the accelerator program 8 of Lanarkshire, support to the Food and Drink Business Network Lanarkshire Larder, and support to local businesses in accessing subcontract opportunities. So in terms of monitoring, as described in paragraph 8.2, so updates on this action plan will be provided twice a year as part of the Q2 and Q4 reports of the Food Action Plan, which is presented so twice a year at the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee. There is no direct financial implication as a result of the recommendation, and the main risk for now, which has been identified, is the possibility for the Council to have difficulties to progress the objective of increasing the provision of local food. So finally, I will refer you back to the recommendation paragraph 2, which is to note the contents of the report, which was approved by the Climate Change and Sustainability Committee on the 20th of September 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any questions now on that report? I think, Alec?
Yeah, more a comment, Chair, just to congratulate Helen on the report. With a farming and retail background, I can see the issues that she's raised, and she's been very clear, and I feel accurate on where the difficulties and the challenges, as they're put, are in taking this forward. What is most important is item 6.6, where she identified the challenges, but how also you could turn them into opportunities. And I think they're very important, as there will need to be change in both in the procurement and in the supply side if we wish to be more successful in gaining more local produce into our assets. So well done.
Thank you for that. I know the paper's already been at the Climate Change Committee as well and approved there, but I would really just add to what Alec had said. I think in here there are I think a very comprehensive report, I should say, a typically comprehensive report, and also a very balanced and thorough report. But I think the points that were standing out for me were actually how do we help local suppliers, how do we convene what's like the power of convenership, how do we help local suppliers get into some of these bigger contracts, and also there was a point that was standing out for me. The Council cannot award local providers without a competitive process, but tendering processes can be tailored with specific criteria that could give a higher score to local businesses, for example, community wealth building and sustainability criteria. So I think these are the areas in which we have to be agitating to get a better outcome for the local economy. Are there any other questions? No? Well, if that's the case, thank you very much for the report. If we can agree its recommendations, agree just to note the report. I'll come now to item 8, which is on our forward programme for future meetings. Tom, do you want to just talk through item 8?
Yeah, it won't take me long, Chair. This is your regular report where we look ahead at what's coming up. In this case, it's the 4 meetings we have scheduled for next calendar year. You'll see that the next meeting on the 12th of March, the agenda is looking a bit light at the moment, but we have had a couple of ideas around the table today. And there is another report I'm hoping to bring you in terms of an update on the wish list programme that you mentioned earlier, Chair. So it's my usual invitation, especially to partner organisations, that if they have anything they want to flag with Neil and me, we'll bring them forward. Thank you.
Okay. If there are any suggestions, please feel free to relay them to Tom and to Neil. Well, if we can agree to that, to the forward programme, we agreed, yes. Then I don't have any items of urgent business, so I will bring the meeting to a close, and thank you everybody for attending. Thank you.